their kid in pain that they sometimes don't want to start the dialogue because they don't want to hear the answers. And that's a really rough road, and I get that. And as a non-parent, it's easy for me to say, but you never want to experience your child in pain, but you want them to open up and share that pain. How do you get parents to sort of balance that? That's a challenge.
Yeah, it's like Moana, like, I mean, I don't know if a lot of like your listeners are in Disney. I have a 6-year-old, so, I am big Disney lover. But like Moana, avoidance of the water so that her parents, she didn't have a craving to go out into it. Like her parents saw it as this dangerous thing. And so her parents were like, no, let's look into the island, Mm-hmm. And I think that like a lot of parents have a tendency of doing that. Like if I don't talk about drugs, if I don't talk about sex, if I don't talk about LGBTQ, if I don't talk about these things that are quote unquote shameful in the eyes of the parent, and they're kind of judging themselves on maybe trying these things, doing these things in the past, whatever it might be, that my daughter, my son, they aren't going to try it. And I think that it ends up going the complete opposite direction, that because you're not talking about it, because you're not just having a conversation, making this home environment the safe place for you and your son or daughter just to speak on these issues, they end up trying to find it outside of the home. And that's when it starts to get a little volatile for some people. And then they come back and they feel judged by their parents because they never brought it up in the first place. Like I tell a lot of parents, some of the most, I'm trying to think of like the best word to say, like some of the most, judgmental topics that you can think of in society. You want to make sure that you're developing a home where you can talk about all of them. Mm-hmm. Like I want to tell my daughter, I want to talk about politics with my daughter, not from a place of judgment. Whatever you want to do, great. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about our beliefs. Let's talk about what our questions. Mm-hmm. Same thing with like religion and, and gender. I mean, like I want to create this really safe place for my daughter so that when she has questions in the world, which are inevitably going to happen, mm-hmm. she sees the safe place as her home and her parents. And I think that there's a lot of family dynamics because of this generational shift that has happened that are really lacking that.
And you bring that up. That's also an exercise that has value in a relationship. A boyfriend and a girlfriend, or boyfriend and a boyfriend, or a husband and a wife should feel that their relationship is a safe place of non-judgment to share what is bothering them, what do they feel, and let's have positive dialogues so they don't ball up and then explode one day because you didn't, having regular conversations lets the air out a little and it takes the pressure off and it lets the other person know, like, I'm going to share this before it gets to a place where we break up, Mm-hmm. And it's all about creating an environment of confidence. And we're going to talk about confidence a little bit more detail. I got to take a quick break because we got to pay the bills around here, but we will be back right after this. And we are back, and I am here with founder of Positive Presence Global, Michelle Marie King. One thing we do have in common is, we have a lot of things in common, Michelle, is we have to both project confidence in our professional lives while being able to share what we're not great at and our vulnerability and all those kinds of things. And that is a tricky thing too, that you're not like, I have all the answers. I raise the questions. I try and, create dialogues all the time. What is your confidence journey like? Because I know you pretty well. It's a lot of times when you're the most confident person in the world, and there's a lot of times you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. So I know it's never a finished product. How would you describe your sort of circuitous path to confidence?
Wow, that's such a great question. I feel like confidence has been, it's like an onion, like an onion is still an onion no matter how many layers you peel. Like, if I feel like for me, it was kind of this reverse engineered journey where like I started with like the little teeny tiny onion ball, like in the middle of the onion after you peel all the layers off. I started as that, like, and I was trying to exuberate confidence almost through how I looked. I came out of the modeling world and I felt like the only way that I could portray my true confidence was looking the part, being completely makeup ready and, having 5-inch stilettos and having this baller outfit. And, like my hair was perfect and my nails were perfect. And I felt like it was this very false image of myself, because internally at the time, 6-7 years ago, when I was a model coach, and that's where a lot of this started for me, I felt internally very incongruent to that. Like who I was on the inside was this really lost soul, and I was trying to manage two very different parts of me, and it was exhausting. But over time, as I had my daughter, I launched my company, and it was funny because Positive Presence, 6 years ago when I started this company, I felt the need to kind of come up with a definition of what positive presence is, because we coined the term, I trademarked the term globally. And positive presence, the definition I gave was the confident state of existing. And so as I went through this journey of being an entrepreneur, I started kind of adding these layers back in of confidence, where it wasn't just this shell or this kind of like, vessel that I was in that had looked beautiful. And that was the only thing that exuberated confidence. But I kept on getting these personalities and the emotional side, the physical side, like in my actual body, not just what I was putting on my body. And so it was this very slow journey of really finding the confident state of existing in all areas of my life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, as a wife, as a daughter, as a mom. And that was an explosive journey for me in such a positive way. And now I truly feel, 6 years into it, of course, I'm always growing and evolving, but I feel like the confident state of existing is getting to a point where you can acknowledge that I've done the work, I've climbed the mountain, and I've faced the tumultuous journey, and I am still here climbing. I'm never at my peak, but I am proud of what I've done and who I've become in this. And that's where I stand now. So
let me go back then to, you had to at least be confident in your appearance to enter the modeling world and to eventually enter the beauty pageant circuit. But then you develop eating disorders. Are you basically saying I'm not as confident in the rest of me and I'm taking it out on the physical me? Or is it, I thought I was great, and then I entered an arena with everybody was as good or better than me, and then I felt insecure? Like I kind of understand the balance. Like, well, you must have felt good enough to do this. So how does that happen?
Definitely the latter. I mean, when I entered into the, pageantry, I have so much respect for those women, but that's such a hard world to get into, very hard.
Well, it teaches you that life's about being judged, and at least in the pageants, a lot of times you know what the criteria is. So that is the upside, I think, of the pageant world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, pageantry was a whole nother layer for me. I mean, I did that like before I became a mother, after I kind of got out of the modeling industry, and pageantry was hard because it was entering into the world. And that was really where I started really second guessing my beauty, like my physical beauty, because here I was. And although I was confident and I had finally kind of accepted my very curvy body, I've always had big hips and a big butt and, small waist. And although I've always appreciated it, when I walked into the pageant world, I was like, oh my God, not only are these women, they are spending, 3-4 hours in the gym a day. And I was only spending, like an hour run every day. Like they truly understand this, how important it is to feel good in your skin, not just try to feel good, which is what I was doing. But the other thing too about pageant women is that they are exceptional inside and out. Like a lot of them are academically some of the best students and have some of the most incredible accolades in their lives. They're emotionally stable because they've been doing pageantry most of their lives, So as I started really entering into that world, I started realizing that, wow, although I'm confident, there are a lot of pieces of me that are really broken in comparison to these girls.
And was there a moment where you turned the corner on your confidence and you were like, you know what? I think I can make it. I think I've got this. Was there one moment or was there a time? When was it that you sort of we're all a combination of both. That when the seesaw flipped the other way, and you're like, you know what, I think I am in control of how I feel about me.
It was when I started my business. After I became a mom, I was postpartum after I had my daughter. And a couple of months later, I was like, I ultimately had this passion of positively impacting the generation that my daughter was going to be looking up to. And so I kind of just ran with this passion. And as I started, filed my LLC and put my vision on paper and created my first contract, got my first client, it was like resiliency was instilled almost. And, I never really experienced resiliency before, because in modeling, you either get the job or you don't. And you suck it up if you don't. And or in pageantry, you either win or you don't. And so it was a lot of like these peaks and valleys, really. And with being an entrepreneur, it was, of course, peaks and valleys, but the resiliency got instilled in me because I kept getting back up. I kept on being like, nope, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to pivot this. I'm going to move this, change this. And I think when I became an entrepreneur, it really instilled confidence in other areas of my life, especially mentally and especially emotionally. And I think it's when I started really finding confidence in these other layers of myself, that's when I really started to recognize that this is what confident state of existing is.
Do you think that could have happened without you being a mother? Do you think the mother triggered the strength to do other things? Because I hear that a lot.
I mean, I don't know if I could answer that question, honestly, because for me, being a mom made me really question everything that I was doing in my life, from pageantry. Like I remember asking myself, because I had an opportunity to go back into the pageantry industry after I had my daughter. And I remember asking myself, is this something that my daughter would be proud of me? Like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, like having another crown, another sash, like, would she look at that and be like, wow, Mom, that's amazing? And for me, I don't think that this is the same for a lot of women, but for me, the answer was no. And so she became kind of my reason for making the choices that I was making. And it's almost like my daughter became this thing that I constantly looked back at. Would my daughter be proud of me for this? And yeah, I mean, being a mom changed everything for me.
We've explored this a little bit on this podcast before. There's obviously ways to make yourself physically more attractive. There's ways to make yourself desirable. We told the men many times, there's ways to make yourself at least seem more appealing and more charming if you learn how to play the guitar, or you take up French, or we gave you 100 things. Go back and listen to those. And there's ways to improve. The one thing that is always a challenge is, how do you give somebody confidence? And how can you make somebody confident? Confidence tends to come with experience. Confidence tends to come from failure. And the three words that I've been giving people that I think can trigger a lot of things in confidence are the words they don't know. And that has two meanings to it. First of all, it means that the people around you, they don't know you. So you shouldn't worry about their perception of you. And the other part of they don't know is they don't know shit, meaning nobody knows necessarily more than you. And I learned that going to Hollywood at a young age. And I was in these rooms with people in suits and they thought they're important. And I learned early on, they don't know shit, or they didn't know anything that I couldn't learn. They didn't know anything that I couldn't do. And changing that mindset will give you confidence, because you're basically not just raising yourself up. You're making this mental thing of raising everybody down to you're all sort of on the same level. And that can make you confident that you're like, I'm not the worst one here. I'm not the loser here. Nobody can do things. And we're all operating within a same sort of bandwidth. We have peaks and valleys, and we have ceilings and floors and all that, but all of us have a sort of limited capability on both sides of it. And once you sort of train yourself that, the fear factor goes away and your confidence level can flourish.
Mm-hmm. I love, there's this term that so many people told me when I started my company was fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that a lot in Hollywood. And I love that. And as I started getting into positive psychology, emotional intelligence, I started realizing that those words, I used to be like, oh, but that's like being fake. That's being a fake person. And I really used to hate that like I am not being authentic if I'm faking who I am. But then as I started getting into positive psychology, I was like, actually, you are what you believe. Like when I walk into a room and I have this vision of, 2 years from now going to New York City and sitting in a skyscraper and walking into this conference room full of these like multi-billionaire investors, which is absolutely going to happen because I envision it. And they all want to invest in my company. I'm still going to be the lowly small business owner, with a somewhat global company, but I'm going to walk into that room with confidence. Like I deserve $500 million for my company.